Hello and welcome. My name is Kenneth Njendu. I'm the Director of Technology at Centuria Limited. And with me today is Muchemi Wambugu. Muchemi,
Yeah.
kindly introduce yourself.
Yes, thanks, Ken. My name is Muchemi Wambugu. I'm a director at Little Einsteins. Obviously, it's a STEM program for these young and up and coming scientists. Uh, by day, I'm a consultant working on technology transformation projects, and I have a sensitive area for children, and so I love looking at avenues in which we can help our next generation use technology in the way in which they can build their lives.
Okay. So just to begin the discussion, I think I'll start with a fairly obvious question by asking, what is online learning?
That's keen, and you know you're in technology also, so the aspect of using tools in technology to actually learn is basically online learning.
Yes.
Basically, instead of being face to face, you are using technology as an interface for learning.
Okay.
Now, most traditionally, we've been looking at it for classroom teacher, learning side by side. But now, when you put a screen in front of a child and transmit the same information, you're actually giving that information to them and actually helping them learn. So, online learning is really an alternate way in which we traverse the same information that we would in face to face.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if you had to perhaps say, where would you say the online learning ecosystem in Kenya is today?
Well, in our situations and in our setups, Ken, you know, everything is very challenging.
Yes.
Um, and would say it was very traditional, very structured, very face to face, very present. Uh, but now with COVID, everything now is different. We'd have to adopt an online slash present type structure for learning.
Yes.
And so, because of that, I think we have a situation where we have a lot of children who will benefit from this. And they'll benefit because the environment supports their learning.
Okay.
So you have technology, you have tools, you have uh, pedagogy that is designed around teaching.
Okay.
I think where it is going to hurt is in very many public schools that are not well funded, we'll have children who will miss the boat on learning. And that is something that is going to be very difficult moving forward because we are going to be moving into what we call a hybrid situation.
Yeah.
Just like Little Einstein is doing. You see, Little Einstein had a lot of face-to-face physical location experiments,
Yes.
children learning,
Yes.
and now that's gone. So I think that the tools that you're designing for the program are going to help in that distant yet present learning, if you will.
And that is very key. And I think one of the key things that we have learned as we have transitioned into building online platforms during this COVID-19 period is that you have to take a lot of factors into consideration. A lot of the factors that you said, where you have users who are new to technology, you have limitations of connectivity, access to a network that's reliable, and so forth. And so, COVID-19, yes, it has definitely forced the emergence or the adoption of online learning. And so, for those who are new to it, say, for example, I'm a parent who has limited access to technology, but all of a sudden, my child is at home, and I have to make sure that that they're able to continue with their learning. How do I go about it? Because you recently wrote an article, outlining 5 broad strategies that parents can adopt to. So maybe you could, walk us through your thinking around that.
Yeah. Thanks, Ken. And I think one of the things that will come out of this is the tools that you've brought into the mix will allow for these strategies to take shape.
True.
So, in an article I had written before, we talked really about 5 things that parents should know, or the environment should know when you're doing online learning. The first that I put is safeguarding, and technology. But by safeguarding, you're talking really specifically about how do you protect a child online? How do you work with a child to say, look, these sites are safe, these sites are not safe.
Okay.
How do you prevent children from being bullied and shamed and embarrassed online? Because kids, just like parents who are new to online learning, they look at it and they don't know it's an always on situation. And you and I have seen situations which are quite embarrassing.
Yes,
on Zoom
in a corporate setting.
Yeah, and people are sitting there and they have no clue that the camera is on them.
Yes.
So kids can be also very brutal to each other. So one of the things is, within an online learning platform, we have to figure out how to prevent the issues that come with bullying, shaming, those kinds of things. Secondly, we have to prepare the aspects, or within that same framework, prepare the aspects of technology, which is give them the tools, give them the laptops, give them the tablets, give them an environment, even if it's a shared technology like a PC that they can use, so that the child has access to the learning platform. So that is one. The second thing that I looked at was really looking at the online communication. Online communication and etiquette. So online communication really points at how do you create a feedback loop to the parents? How do you involve the parents? How do you involve the teacher? How do you involve the student? Because the student is really at the center.
Okay.
So they are going to need to be communicated with so that they are not getting along. I've heard
so the parent communicates to the teacher, communicates to the student, so that everyone is aware that the point of focus, who is the student, everyone is on the same page.
Correct.
Yes.
And you see, within that communication environment, you're able to then get a feedback loop.
Okay.
And that allows for the student to know, hey, I need to be chonjo.
Yes.
Because somebody is watching.
Somebody is supervising.
The parent needs to be also alert that there's a structure that is being created here, even though it's not the usual, let me give you my child and that's it. I'm not going to be.
There's a lot more parental involvement in this online.
Correct.
Yes.
Then within that same framework is also the etiquette. How do you behave online?
Okay.
You can't just be sending stupid messages or foolish messages to kids.
So most parents will teach the children, say please, say thank you, and everything. That's real world etiquette. What is online etiquette?
Now, online etiquette is you can't just jump when somebody else is talking.
Okay. You excuse yourself.
Yeah, you excuse yourself.
Yes. Okay.
You can't just be sending, like a lot of these online tools that we use have messages like side chats.
The proverbial note in class.
Exactly.
Yes.
So now the problem is that you have to remember that proverbial note in class is not coming to you, Ken.
Yes.
It's going to everybody in the class.
And it is a digital record.
It's a digital record.
Yes.
I had a discussion with a school once. I'd been invited to speak, and they had said, and I told the kids that the internet never forgets.
Yes, and that's a key thing.
It's a key thing. So whatever you type, whatever you say, however you say it, is a permanent record.
So you practice the same good manners you do in the real world online.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Just to return to your first point in terms of safety of technology, a thought I had about sort of like to make it easier for parents to ensure safety, especially as relates to content, I think would be to make sure that you look for single-use learning tools, in the sense that the tool that you're exposing your children to is specifically rated for their use in terms of their age group and so forth. And then also at the same time make sure that if it's a learning tool, it has only learning content and not necessarily links to external entertainment like YouTube and so forth, in order to keep the child focused, unless the external links are educational material.
That's true.
Yeah. So
it's predominantly closed loop type tools that allow for learning.
Yes, and that's the key thing, is that Ellie's online learning platform is such a tool in the sense that it's completely focused on learning and does not really distract the children from too many other things. But further to that point, the challenge of connectivity, which comes now with sort of like the adoption of technology. How should parents who have limited connectivity or have challenges around getting stable connections, how should they go about it?
That is something that we're still working on, or rather the environment is still working on. Okay. So there are, and maybe you'll elaborate on the tool, but one of the things about learning can be synchronous or asynchronous. Basically all that means is that it's either live, real time, or it could be filmed or worked on later. So there's a delay between learning within the framework that you have. So in areas where there is no internet or internet is sporadic, and in particular when we say internet is sporadic, it's actually about power.
Yes, that's another challenge.
Yeah, exactly. And if there's no power, then you can have what you call asynchronous learning.
Yes.
So that means that if the tool that you've designed can be able to package the work that the STEM students should be using, that they can learn at a different time, say when power is available, or when internet is available, when bundles are available, then the student cannot be left too far behind.
Yes.
As long as within a certain time frame the work has been done, it will allow for kids not to be left behind. But if it is real time, which is synchronous, it becomes difficult because now once that time has left, you'll have to try and gather it either by virtue of downloading a recorded program for which kids obviously don't have the interest, or looking for a makeup class for which case most of people will not have that interest. So it's tricky. So there needs to be some sort of structure that surrounds the online learning that allows for both synchronous and asynchronous learning, which then means, Ken, that a lot of schools have been saying that it takes longer to do online learning than it is to do face-to-face.
Yes.
Because in online learning, it takes a longer period of time because if it is asynchronous, you need to give enough time for the students to learn that package and to give feedback that is electronic, as opposed to how we are engaging right now, which is face-to-face.
Indeed.
But COVID won't allow us to do that.
No.
So.
No, it will not.
Yeah,
it will not.
Yeah.
And you mentioned something interesting about structure, which speaks to the third point that you mentioned in your 5 strategies, right?
Yes.
And so with respect to structure, we're going from where children are in a structured school environment and their days are pretty much structured around lessons, right?
Yes.
And so now they're more in a more, unstructured environment at home. And so they need to be able to enforce structure. How would you go about that? Or how do you advise our audience to go about that?
Yeah, so structure is critical. We were talking earlier and I was saying that lack of structure, kids love anarchy.
Yes.
They will define their own structure, which is not defined by our levels of structure.
Yes. And unfortunately with them, when they define the structure, it's not geared towards productivity.
Never. It's a geared towards fun.
Geared towards play and fun. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So I have, mid-teen and young adults at home. And so these children need a framework from which to work.
Okay.
And so the same framework that we had in school is now being traversed at home.
Okay.
Now, the challenge with home learning, or what you call home-based learning, requires presence by parents. It requires presence by somebody who will create that structure. Because, for instance, I could be in my room doing Zoom or doing online meetings all day. My son or daughter could be in other rooms doing their classroom all day.
Okay.
Who monitors whether they are doing their classwork? Who monitors whether they are actually attending?
Yes.
I have seen cases where kids set up and they say, oh, my internet is not working. And they put their name having signed in, and all of a sudden they're playing games. I was talking to a friend of mine who, unless she stood in front of their kids, there were 2 boys, they sign up and then they open their tablets and play their PS games.
Oh dear.
So they're playing online and class is going on.
Yes.
So
that is
yeah, but similarly on a face-to-face, there are those kids who want to sit in the back.
Yes.
So that they can hang out and chat about what happened in the playground and things like that. So it's no different. It's just that now, if you have a structured time in a quiet place without distractions, then the child can learn.
Okay.
As long as they have a table or a place that they can work, it makes it comfortable. But without that structure, or without somebody looking at them or monitoring them or monitoring their actions, or without monitoring the kinds of inputs that they're getting, they're not going to do it.
And just to elaborate on what you're saying about structure, what I'm getting away from you is that, and I understand sometimes for parents it can be difficult. You might be at work, you might have your calls and so forth. And so One key thing about structure, when we talk about structure, we're not necessarily talking about time, though it would be favorable maybe to try and keep consistent times for your kids. But, as Muchemi said, the key thing is to make sure that when it's learning time, it's a quiet environment,
Right.
and there are no distractions. And then, I think maybe most parents can be flexible a bit more with the time. But for the most part, maybe pick a 2-hour slot. Maybe it can be at 10 or at 8, depending on what time in the morning your kids are ready to start. And then you go from there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And actually, critical to structure is also when are their breaks? What classes are they taking when?
Which speaks to the health and wellness.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Fourth point.
Yeah.
Strategies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And are they doing their homework?
Yes.
Or are they doing their assignments? Are they finishing their assignments? Those kinds of things are critical.
So you look for those milestones and sort of measurables.
Correct.
Say the child is making progress.
Correct.
The same way you would in a
classroom. It's only that now you take the role of parent and side teacher at the same time. So without creating presence for the children, the structure then becomes absent, because most times you can't delegate some of this work. Your living help may not have the wherewithal to know what it is that child actually needs on an online platform. Yet when you send them to school,
yes,
it is expected that the teacher knows how to teach and how to traverse that information.
They are trained professionals.
Yes. So now you're bringing that element of the learner
yes,
without a trained professional at home.
yes.
So, and the only way that the trained professional is interacting is digitally.
And so their communication.
Yes. So there's need to, as everybody is saying, the new normal.
Yeah.
We also have to take the role of teachers, in a sense, in order to guide these children.
That is true.
Yeah.
That is true. Yeah. And so, based on that, obviously, all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. So we can actually look now to the health and wellness side. With the work comes reward, and so for the students, after 2 hours of learning, what sort of recreational activity should you be able to offer to your children? Because much like learning, recreation faces its challenges due to COVID-19.
Yeah.
The kids can't really go run around the neighborhood or the estate like they used to, and so how should parents balance the learning with recreation and other aspects of health and wellness?
One of the biggest casualties is health amongst children, because, and we've been talking about it now, children being left to their own devices is a problem. Yes. But even worse off, children need a place where they can interact, because it's part of our socialization.
Yes.
You take that away, children's behavior start to regress. So any online platform needs to have a way in which it creates an interactive environment so that children can increase their socialization, reduces depression, increases self-worth, and also increases the ability to associate.
Okay.
You notice that a lot of people are using the terms gamification.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
And it's nothing short of saying, I can meet with you virtually because you're my friend.
Yes.
But when we transfer information as a school environment, we assume that that is bad. And therefore, you just need to learn you as an individual, which doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't.
So what is happening is that the children are becoming more depressed because they don't have an avenue for which they can socially interact, kind of like break time. And I think tools need what you call break time, where it's a free flow type environment where kids can actually meet, just like they would in those who play games online. You meet with your friends, and it's now a community of people to play.
Virtual gaming.
A virtual gaming environment. You need something like that in the new strategies for online learning.
Okay.
So that these kids can have an environment for which they learn. Now, the other problem with that is that the teachers are also getting stressed, because all of a sudden there's so much work that they have to give and interact with the students. Before they have a set curricula that they come and they teach in class, whatever is not done by that time, it's finished.
And they teach all 20 children
children at the same time. And whatever is not done, they give homework.
Yes.
And that's the end of that interaction. They can go to their families. Now, that teacher is online 24/7 with them. But sadly, I don't think the environment is catching up or to the realization that also the instructors are also having a hard time adopting to this new change.
Okay.
Secondly, there's also the aspect of the instructors also understanding the technology to use it effectively to deliver the outcomes for education. And so because of that, there needs to be an element where people are able to virtually interact, virtually learn, and also at home have what you call free breaks. Tell the kids, you know what? Enough of the devices.
Yeah.
Can you go outside in the parking lot and get some sun? Can
Just
you
do something outside?
Yeah, because if not told, the child will be there.
Yes.
So how do you get that child outside safely to interact with one or two people in a safe manner to allow for their mental state to come back to balance? Because right now there's a chance that a lot of kids are off kilter, as we have seen in the last 3 months or so.
No, and that's sort of like the key thing is that, social education is also a big factor, right? And so, as Muchemi said, that break time is very important, and that ability to interact and sort of like have an environment where you can learn from your schoolmates and so forth, and those opportunities should still be taken, obviously with the necessary precautions to necessary for COVID, and and so forth and so on. And so just to wrap up, you mentioned inclusivity. How does that relate to the online learning process, in the sense of, you previously mentioned that the parents need to be engaged with the teachers, who need to be engaged with the students, right? Who need to sort of like triangulate around the student, right? And so when you say inclusivity, who else should be included in this ecosystem?
You see, when we went to school, you went to school to a teacher. Either we went the old system or the what do you call it? The 844 system, or the IGCSE system, or even the American system.
Yes.
And now the CBC system. So any learning environment should also include what is government, or what are the institutions that are governing this curricula doing to make sure that online learning becomes a staple, if you will. Because I think there's not going to be a situation where we are learning straight anymore. It has to be a hybrid type situation. And so you need, what is government doing through the ministries? What are the governing bodies doing to help with whether it is a CBC or IGCSE or IB even, doing to help with the environment? What is the teacher network doing to improve the skills? What is the ecosystem doing to make sure that the child has a tool? And I think also something that is going to be lost in this whole thing is, how are you dealing with disabled children? How are you dealing with their access to education? What are those tools? Braille is very expensive, but yet now, can you imagine devices with larger font? So software that is, you partner with the ecosystem, say like the IBMs or the big software organizations, to allow for access for some of these tools to enhance visuals, to actually enhance sound for people who are or hard of hearing, or to enhance access to the places that are required for a child to learn properly. So that online education becomes inclusive, and it's inclusive based on the ecosystem that is supportive of a child's learning. So when you take a child to learn, you need all the tools around it to make that child learn, irrespective of what their abilities are.
And irrespective of how they're learning.
Correct. Because there are some who are also slower than the average class.
Yes.
And then there are those who are faster than the average class. But yet you have to teach them the same amount of information to meet the qualifications that you're looking for. So I think what you'd call adjusted and flexible learning online is also going to be something that is going to be very big in the next 5 years. They say that it's, a very big industry coming up
Wow.
As far as
in the next 5 years, most parents will be PhD teachers.
Exactly.
Next 5 years,
Yeah.
But just to add on to a lot of what you've said, I think one of the key things to consider also as a parent when you're looking to enter into the online learning space is, like we mentioned, major considerations around technology. What technology are your children using to learn? Are they using tablets, which might be a bit more resilient in places where you have connectivity or power issues? Are they using a laptop? Are they using a desktop at home? And irrespective of that, you have to look at what it is that they're consuming, the content. Are they improving? Are they progressing? You have to be involved with the teachers, and so as Muchemi said, and as you've sort of like gathered from this discussion, you can see that parents are being called upon to be teachers, and so that's a significant challenge despite the availability of great learning platforms like early online learning.
There are a couple of things that I wanted to bring up, and I know you're designing tools.
Yes.
Particularly for children.
Yes.
And you're designing tools even for LE. LE in this case is Little Einstein.
Yes.
So given the strategies that we've used, how is the tool able to actually engage Little Einstein students in the STEM learning platform to allow for the outcomes that you're looking for to be delivered?
So the tool primarily seeks to continue the mission that LE started by focusing on STEM education, right? So science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And so, as I mentioned, the content is important, and the content will broadly be in these, major categories, right? Okay. The LE learning platform also is independent of, any technology platform. You can run it on your laptop, a tablet, or whatever device you're using to learn.
Can you use it on a phone?
And the good thing, yes, you can actually use it on a phone because the LE learning platform is fully responsive. And the good thing about it is we use the technology called progressive apps. And what that does is that it allows you to be able to run on any platform, as I mentioned, but also the good thing is that you may need an initial, burst of data to pull down everything that the platform needs to run. But once it does, it can run completely localized. And so, it just takes time to sync whenever you have a connection. So that's sort of like the good thing is that it doesn't hinder the child from learning. But in order to sync and in order to download new activities, you might need a connection. So there's sort of like trying to balance because you can't sort of cut yourself off from the world entirely with online learning. It's implied in the word.
Yeah.
But we kind of say, okay, you only need to be online for a short period of time to collect the materials, and then you continue with your activities.
So is there a time frame? Does it give you a monitored time frame that you can say, okay, well, I'm downloading this information, and then because it's obviously asynchronous learning.
Yes.
So you download the information, you work on it. Does it give you a time frame, or how does it work?
So the approach is more like it's activity based, and so it's more about making sure that the children learn correctly rather than setting constraints on time. So you'll find, like, for example, an activity where a child is requested to match, say, a picture with the organ that senses it. So you maybe see a flower and you match it to a nose, right? So if the child matches it to the eye, we give them positive feedback and we sort of like say, you got it wrong, you can try again, right? So we want to kind of like encourage a heuristic approach to learning for the children. Okay. And so that way as they interact with the activities, they sort of gain knowledge and, progress as they go forward.
So we talked about the different systems.
Yes.
Is this STEM online platform that you've created, does it follow a particular system, or is it just open as far as STEM is concerned? So
the focus is particularly on STEM and using more age-appropriate content to deliver to the children. It's not particularly tied to any system, though you will find overlap in subject matter with, for example, KICD's curriculum. You'll find maybe a few things here and there that do overlap. But for the most part, it's about teaching the children, and so it's not geared to any particular system, but there is overlap on the subject matter that you do cover. And so the LE platform is something that I think is geared towards first-time adopters of technology, users who like simple, clean interfaces, and children who want to augment whatever it is they might be learning in the formal schooling system. And so that's primarily the focus, is to say, online learning does not have to be daunting, it does not have to be complicated, it does not have to be costly. It is something that, we believe can be truly accessible to everyone, and I think that is ultimately what LE has tried to do in the past and will continue to do in the future.
So I'm a parent, and
Yes.
if I have a small toddler who wants to get into school and is well, not toddler, but a young child who's doing this system, the primary thing that parents are asking is it secure?
Yes.
I mean, can I leave my child to do that activity and trust that no one else is poking their head in there and giving them ill information that will hurt my child more than it will help them?
So the good thing is that, yes, as I mentioned earlier, and one of the recommendations we outlined in this conversation was for parents to look for online learning tools that are specific to online learning, to basically educating their children. And so the early platform is that, in that it has only content that is educational and that is of benefit to the children, and that parents will actually have an account on the system to administer. So, for example, you would create an account, and you would be the administrator, and then you can add your children, sort of the way Netflix has, the main account holder, and the people who don't want to pay back. So the children are the ones who they never pay for it.
Yeah, of course. They're right.
But, yes. but basically the idea is that, like you mentioned, the inclusivity. The parent is there, and so LE can actually provide feedback to the parents on the progress of their children. And so you'd have a single tablet, you open up the LE online learning platform, and you'd have your account there, which, obviously will have a small passcode so the kids don't get in.
Yes.
But the kids' accounts are open, and you can go in and see what they've been doing. They can go in and do activities and track progress and so forth and so on. So the key thing that we did is that we focused a lot on security. We made sure that all data transmission is encrypted, so nobody can sort of hop onto your network. And also at the same time, we made sure that it's a single-use platform, a single-use tool that does not have any way that inappropriate content can creep in. And then the third thing we did was to add the supervisory role for the parent.
So I know in STEM and in Little Einstein, we had a lab.
Yes.
And kids go into the lab and they really, I thought it was just the most amazing thing.
It was.
How do you move that lab online using the platform?
Unfortunately, that is something that we are still trying to figure out how to replicate. Simply put, the LE lab experience was one of a kind. Simply because, the excitement that children have from that tactile response of actually touching things, seeing experiments, seeing the live outcomes. We can't really sort of like recreate that across the platform. We are trying to get as close as we can, and a number of solutions for that is sort of like to share videos about past experiments done so that the children can actually do them at home with the parents. And again, that goes back to the to the communication and inclusivity. The idea that you want to engage in these learning projects with your children. So the availability of those experiments as activities within the learning platform is also a great way for parents to engage with their children and replicate the magic that used to be at the early lab at home.
Yeah.
Yes.
And how have you created a feedback loop as far as the communication back to the parents and back to the people who are actually assigning the experiments so that you can track progress for the kids?
So the children will be able to track progress, and all this now will come back as part of the feedback. So the key thing that we are focused on in this first version of the learning platform is to make sure we can deliver content to parents and children. This is content that is already part of the LE curriculum, and so it's familiar to anyone who's already an LE member, and so forth. And so we want to make sure that this first version makes sure that we're delivering that content to the parents and the children, and then future versions will cater now to additional, more robust feedback in addition to the tracking that will now go out with this first version of the learning platform.
Does it have a way in which you can create breaks for the kids so that in the middle of learning, there's a 10-minute break? Okay, kids, let's do something else.
I'm sure we cannot be all things to everyone. But yes, that is something that is very important. Yes, and I agree with you. I agree with you that, no, but what we've done is that each activity is discrete. And we track the progress, right? So say, for example, I have 10 activities. As a kid, I maybe do one activity that takes me 20 minutes, one that takes me 10 minutes. If that covers, my 30 minutes for my morning session, I can stop there. And when I come back in, I'll start on the third activity.
Okay.
So the good thing is that even as the children progress, we allow the flexibility to take breaks where you can, because each activity is a discrete unit. But once you're done, but the actual on the ground management of break time, we shall leave that to parents.
Excellent. Yes. I'm liking it. I'm thinking that applying the strategies to the tool, I think, will allow for. Not many parents are looking for what kids are doing. We are getting into the summer break now.
Yes.
And so people are looking for things to do. So those programs where you'd send kids all over the place, now you can't.
Yes.
So I think a platform like this is very handy, because what it will do is that it will bring that experience into the home.
Yes.
And allow for the kids to have fun outside of school, I think.
And that's the key thing. And as Muchemi said, these 5 strategies are very key. And as a tech worker, I'm actually happy that Muchemi wrote this because I myself don't have any children yet.
Yeah.
But it's sort of like good to look at this and say, oh, this is exactly what we need to do. So I mean, your thoughts and your consideration of what it means to transition to online learning has been really helpful, at least to us as LE, in terms of rolling out this online learning platform. And we genuinely hope that it's helpful to the parents out there who are dealing with this difficult transition. And we hope that this helps in any way that it can. And if not, we hope that you will hear back from you, and that you'll check out the LE online learning platform as a way to kind of like enter into the online learning space, or augment whatever it is that your children are doing in online learning as it is.
Excellent.
Great. So Muchemi, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Really appreciate your time today.
Yes.
And we shall we look forward to this launch.
Yes.
And we welcome all of you to come and try the LE online learning platform.
But is it on Android, Apple?
It's actually on, and it can run on any platform because it's a progressive
But
app.
is it downloadable?
So the good thing is that you click on a link and then it opens, a progressive app opens as a browser within the container. So if it's iOS, it'll open a browser in iOS and run like an app.
So do you get the tool from the LE site, or you get it from?
You can get it from the LE site by clicking on the link, or you can, or yes, you can actually do